So let's get started. The first thing we're going to cover is the basic interface of ChatGPT, some of the settings, some of the different buttons, and pretty basic stuff that if you've played around with ChatGPT already, you may feel is too basic and you might want to just completely skip or at least watch at a faster speed. So this is ChatGPT here. With a completely empty slate, I've deleted all of my existing chats, and I have this choice between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. I'll generally use GPT 4 in this course. It gives slightly better results in a lot of situations, although it can be slower. But in this video, I'll stick with 3.5. So down here, I can type my chat prompt, of course, whatever prompt I want. We spend a lot of time in this course talking about different prompts and strategies for writing the best prompts and different ideas. But let's just do something like, write me a poem about sea otters. And I get my nice poem. It's a pretty basic prompt. Honestly, in the real world, I'd probably have way more requirements. Is it a limerick? Is there a specific meter for the poem? How many lines and stanzas? Anything, the tone? Is it a serious poem? Well, maybe not romantic. Is it a serious poem or a humorous one? But I get my output. The first thing that we'll talk about here, other than generating some basic output, is that if I'm not happy with this result, I can always click regenerate response. I could also just follow up and say, can you try again? This time, make it shorter. But if I want to use the exact same prompt, I can click regenerate response. And it's really important to note that ChatGPT is not deterministic, meaning the same prompt is not going to give us the same output in most situations. You could run this 20 times and we'll probably get 20 different poems. Of course, there are some prompts, if I asked it, what color is the sky, only answer with one word, it's probably going to always tell me blue, but that has a lot more to do with the prompt. Anyway, I can regenerate a response, or I can follow up and say, try again, but please make it much shorter. Still, I probably want to be more specific than just much shorter. Maybe please make it 2 stanzas or 8 lines. But as you can see, it did make it shorter. Only 4 lines this time. So that's our first official prompt. Not the most useful, but it just demonstrates, this basic workflow. Type something in, hit enter, wait for it to complete, and then if I'm unhappy with it, regenerate it, or follow up with a further prompt. Let's talk about these buttons here next to every output that ChatGPT generates. There's a thumbs up and thumbs down, which is basically used to provide feedback to OpenAI. So if I'm happy with what it generated here, I can provide feedback. Honestly, I never do this unless I get something really bad, in which case I might downvote it or say, this is like offensively bad. I think I've done that one time. So not something I typically do. Then there's this clipboard button, which just copies the entire contents of the output onto your clipboard. And this can be useful. Mostly I use it when I'm generating code or anything long. You could also, of course, just, copy this. But if you want to get it all in one go, click that button and it's on your clipboard. Another thing that it does automatically is anytime we have a new chat, whatever that first prompt is, in this case, write me a poem about sea otters, it will use that and come up with some name. So it doesn't use the exact name, write me a poem about sea otters, but it comes up with a name, a smart name, and it gives the chat itself that name over here so you can reference it. So a poem about sea otters. Now, if I make a new chat, I can do, of course, whatever I want in here, but note that it's completely self-contained and separate from the poem about sea otters. So if I try and reference the poem, please make the poem longer this time. It's just going to write me some poem. And I'm actually surprised that it just wrote a poem. I was expecting it to say, I don't know what poem. Is there a theme, a topic? So it just made some random poem up for me, but it has nothing to do with what I was discussing with it in this particular chat. They're all walled off from one another. And then, of course, it gave it some name here. You can rename that. If I had a really long prompt or a really long output, I want you to write me a blog post. The post should be about, how about nudibranchs off the California coast. It should be 500 to 600 words. Let's just give it a prompt like that. It will write some long output, but it will decide on a nice name, usually a pretty nice name over here, once it finishes. In this case, nudibranchs off California. And of course I can edit that name, give it a different name, and I can also just delete the entire chat. That history will be lost. If I delete, let's say, this one here, it will ask me, or I have to click the check mark to confirm, but now it's gone completely, and now I can't retrieve any of the information that was in that chat session. And then if you want to just clear your history entirely, you can go down here and go to Clear Conversations, Confirm, and now all of our conversations are completely gone. So that's the basic ChatGPT interface. There's a bit more to cover, but I'll leave that for the next video.